Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to This One's Dedicated To. I'm Jennifer Ziegler.
And I'm Chris Barton. We both write books for young people, and we love talking with other creators of books for young people about the dedications in their books.
And that's what This One's Dedicated To is all about. And today we're so happy to be joined by one of our favorite authors, one of our favorite humans in general, our friend Pat Zietlow Miller, who's here to talk about her book, What Can You Do with a Rock?, written by her and illustrated by Katie Kath. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Thanks so much for having me.
To get us started, would you please read the dedication in your book out loud for us?
Okay, well, it's a really short one, and it just says, to Sonia, again. And I can tell you the story behind the again. The very first book that I wrote was called Sophie Squash, and it was about a little girl who falls in love with a butternut squash and carries it everywhere. And it was inspired by my youngest daughter, Sonia, who fell in love with a butternut squash when she was small and carried it everywhere. So she got my first book dedication. And then when I was writing this one, What Can You Do with the Rock?, it was also inspired by Sonia because she went through this huge rock phase. And so I'm like, there's no one else I can dedicate this book to except her. So she's the only person so far that I've dedicated a book to twice. She's 19 now. And I think she vaguely thinks it's cool.
Did you have any qualms about double dipping out of all the billions of people on the planet to dedicate another book to the same person?
Well, I've got two daughters who I love equally, and Gwen, my oldest, only has one book dedicated to her. So, I may have to rectify that at some point.
That's equal.
Pressure's on.
I only have one book dedicated to my husband. So, but there's just no one else because we had rocks everywhere, stacked up on our steps, lined up along the windows. You do the wash and I'd have to go through the pockets of everything to make sure that the rocks didn't go through the spin cycle. And it just, there was no one else I could dedicate this rock book to.
So you knew from the get-go that it was going to go. No one else.
There was no other option. And actually, Suni has inspired two other of my books as well. I dedicated them to other people, but she really has been my muse for at least 4 of my picture books because she's just a delightful person with an interesting way of looking at the world.
Well, how did you let her know about the dedication in this book? And then if you can remember, how did that compare to how you let her know about the initial dedication to her?
Well, she was much younger when Sophie Squash came out. She was in grade school and she was psyched. She went and told all her friends, and I came to school and I read the book to her class. And then the book's called Sophie Squash and her name's Sonia. So all her friends were like, well, if it's about her, why didn't you call it Sonia Squash? Which, is a fair point. But when you're reading out loud, I thought it was easier to say Sophie Squash than Sonia Squash. It just kind of rolled off the tongue better. And so I would say, but it's dedicated to her, and her friends would just look at me like, not good enough. But so she was very excited about the first dedication. For this one, now she's 19, she's in college, she has stuff going on, So she was like, oh, that's cool, Mom. So it wasn't quite, the level of awe, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. But I'm excited about it.
If I was looking for cred on my college campus, I would definitely tell them I had a picture book dedicated to me.
Yeah, I've got 2 picture books dedicated to me.
Were Sonia's specific experiences or the way that she interacted with rocks, is that reflected in What Can You Do with a Rock?
Yeah, because Sonia was never interested in rocks from necessarily a scientific perspective. She didn't care what kind they were or how they were created or what their Latin name was. She just cared, how did they look? How did they feel? And how did they make her feel? I think in her heart. So we just had all these rocks that were special to her for so many different reasons. Never got into the labeling collecting part, but just I have this and it's awesome. And so when I was writing this book in the main fiction part of the story, that's what I was trying to convey, just the kind of the wonder that a rock can inspire to anyone who picks it up. And then in the back, I have back matter, for the more scientifically oriented people that talks about, igneous and sedimentary and metamorphic, and how would you actually classify them? And here's some books that can help you. But I wanted the main thing to be just that kind of magical feeling that rocks can give you.
Yeah, and I'm glad that there was no imposition of this is how you collect rocks and you have to do, that you were able to let her do it.
Because there's no right or wrong way to do it. Sonia had them, some were in a box under her bed and some were lined up. And, I mean, when we moved out of our last house, when she was off at college, we had to like take all the rocks off the windowsill that were still there because our realtor was like, yeah, you should probably move those. So we did. But yeah, she was just into like having them and appreciating them. And that's what I wanted the book to be about. Hey, Chris, how's the video going?
Well, it's going all right. I just haven't figured out what I'm going to do for an ending for this episode.
Well, I mean, you'll figure it out. You rock.
Well, thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.